I'm joined today at Collision Conference 2023 by Kelvin Beachum. Kelvin, thank you so much for coming on Career Crossroads today.
Thanks for having me.
So, because the podcast is all about career pivots, we got to talk about the first part of your career, what you've been doing so far in life.
Yeah.
So for you, as a professional football player, when did you feel like football was the thing that you were probably going to be doing with your career?
I felt football was the thing probably my sophomore year in college, or sophomore year in high school.
Okay.
When I realized that was probably the direction. And the reason being is because I always wanted to be a professional basketball player.
Really?
And, I had a coach that was coaching me for Summer League basketball, AAU basketball, and was like, Kelvin, think about it. It's 10 scholarships that are going to basketball players, every year. There are 22 scholarships that are going to football players every year. And to play the position that you're playing in basketball, you're a tad bit too short. So I took that advice and ran with it and really started to focus on football more, and led to, the opportunity that I have today.
Yeah, all right. So obviously then to go from high school to become a professional football player, you've got to go to the collegiate level,
Correct.
Play there,
Yeah.
and then get drafted. And
Yeah.
Did you feel like in high school you already had that skill set, or was that something that really developed over
Yeah, I
your
think
time?
that it was something that developed over time.
Okay.
By no means that I feel that I had the ability to go play in the National Football League in college. I think for every young male on the planet, you want to go play some type of professional sport, whether it be football, American football, or European football, or cricket, or be a swimmer, or you want to be a professional of some type.
We should mention hockey since we're in Canada.
I'm sorry.
No,
hockey,
don't worry.
hockey. So there's an array of opportunities that I think every male or female in some cases want to be able to go and pursue as being a professional of some type. So had the idea and the ideology of wanting to do so, but realized that there was a lot of work that was involved in being able to accomplish those dreams.
Now, was football something that you were very much in love with, or was it something you saw as your first career because you were very skilled at it, or both?
I think it was a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I think it was the ability to realize that I did have some of the technical competencies to be able to do the job that was necessary to be able to perform at a high level in critical moments of a game. But I also loved it. It's not many places, I say this all the time, it's not many places where you can fight for a living and not get put in jail. And we get to do that on a consistent basis playing football.
Okay, so wrapping up college, football was, clearly where you were headed. You were drafted, and so immediately you just shift into that career. At any point in college, did you start to think about, well, football is maybe it'll happen, or was there other things that you were trying to kind of work towards, knowing that, football either isn't forever, or maybe it wouldn't work out the way you wanted it to?
I think it's a combination of both. So it's and. It was realizing that I was a student and an athlete. You've always had to kind of roll in those dualities of being both a student and an athlete. And I realized that, yes, football wouldn't last forever, but I also realized that if I didn't put my best foot forward to be as best as I could playing football, none of the other stuff would really matter. So I think for me, I had to go down that track of both being a very good student and also being a very good athlete, to just put myself in the frame of mind that I could do both, not one without the other. You can't be successful on a football field and be trash in the class. Then you won't be able to play football.
Right.
So you need both to be able to do the job, and was fortunate that I've had the opportunity to go down two paths for a majority of my life, of being able to play a great sport, a great game, a kid's game at the end of the day, but also realizing the curiosity that's needed to continue to learn over time.
Yeah. So I know you did an undergrad and a master's degree. So was that something that was purely just interest-based, or did you do that to kind of extend your football career?
No, the thing is there was a offensive line coach, and I have to go back and talk about two mentors. One is June Jones, who, when he first met me, he was like, Kelvin, I think you can be in the National Football League for a long time. That was an encouragement that I think I needed early on in my college career. And then I had Adrian Clem, who, I consider him like an older brother, who sat me down. I was like, Kelvin, I didn't utilize my time in college the right way before I got drafted. I want you to find a way to get drafted, or be in the position to be drafted in 3.5 years, which caused me to really speed up the clock from a student standpoint. And then, if things don't work out, go back and get, another degree. And that was all done by somebody who actually played in the National Football League. So he gave me some insight into things that I could have done better based off of his experiences.
So obviously mentorship, super important. It's, I know, something that you're involved in now, and we're definitely going to get into that. But to begin talking about kind of your transition from, well, not even a transition. You're obviously still playing football. I know you just signed a 2-year contract extension. Congratulations. But I have to wonder, we're the same age, and I played volleyball last week, and my body hurt for 5 days. And you played 150-odd games in the NFL at this point. So, eventually, one day, you won't be on the football field anymore.
Correct.
But you have all of these other interests, these things you've been working on outside of football. You're at Collision Conference 2023.
Yeah.
So let's talk about some of these things that you're interested in, some of these organizations that you work with, what your interest at Collision Conference is. I want to start kind of with the you're feeding the world is something that you're working on. And so I know that recently you were in Zambia, I believe, and you built 2 water wells that you paid for. You fundraised for another. How did your interest in this come about?
I've always said that for me, again, I talk about that duality.
Mm-hmm.
From a duality standpoint within philanthropically, it's always been around 2 verticals. One is ending hunger, both domestically and worldwide. You can't talk about the hunger conversation on the global front unless you talk about the basic human need, which is access to water, which is why the conversation around water comes up. And then secondly, it's access to science, technology, engineering, arts, and math.
Mm-hmm.
We're at a tech conference.
Yeah.
How do you make sure that there's an opportunity for many young people from all different walks of life to have the same opportunities to take part in this global economy that's being, perpetuated and evolving, that has to do with AI, ML, enterprise software, data infrastructure, the whole 9. All those things come from this particular type of ecosystem.
Yeah. So
how do you make sure that young people have access to that? And for me, those are where I start at, and then I kind of branch off from there. So you talk about water in Zambia. Wanted to be able to do something on the global front. And started to do a lot, in America. And I was like, well, what can I do, and how can I serve in a more global capacity? And started working with an organization called World Vision. Went to Honduras in 2017. We were supposed to go to West Africa in 2020. Pandemic hits, not able to go. We finally are able to go back into the field this past year, going to Zambia, and had the opportunity to go and, donate 2 wells, and then, had a grand time being able to solicit the response from fans to be able to raise money for the 3rd well. And, that project is going pretty well so far. But wanted to go and see it in person. Wanted to go and touch it, sense it, ask questions, and be able to understand how much impact it was actually making.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned STEAM, and I know you're also involved in the IT Senior Management Forum, trying to bring diversity into more senior levels of IT-type fields. So tell me about your work with that. How did that, develop? Is that part of that same kind of group of interest?
It's that same type of interest. You realize where there's an issue, or there's a hole, or there's a place where you can see an opportunity, and you can see the opportunity for that organization to level up, or that organization to be able to receive something that could actually help their membership. And realize that, as you spend more time in technology, it's great that we have a lot of, things that are bubbling up at the earlier stages of pre-seed and seed and angel investments, and kind of these companies that are out there on the main carpet trying to talk about their companies in their booth. But what about the people that we need to find a way to get from, a VP to senior VP, or, a EVP to, CEO or CTO or CIO or CISO? And that's the type of things that ITSMF really focused on and really talked about, was how do we make sure that we're equipping, diverse executives with the skill set and the tools to be able to go into a boardroom, go into a senior executive office, and be able to really win over influence, which then provides the opportunity for them to have promotion and so on.
That's great. Now, I also know that recently you were involved in an organization that's trying to bring diversity into aviation, which I found fascinating because I've interviewed someone previously who has a what would you call it? Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name for it, but it's basically where they train pilots on machines on the ground. He started that up in Toronto, and he's now working with the school board to try and allow pilots to get credits, because I know there is a big pilot shortage coming, and I know that's something you're very well aware of. So how did that connection start?
Again, you start thinking about where the hole's at. Within the STEAM vertical, science, technology, engineering, arts, and math, where are there holes, and where do you see that there's opportunities that you can go and be able to lend the name of football, or the brand of football, or you're able to utilize your resources and your networks to help promote what they're doing, had the opportunity to collaborate with United Aviation, which is an extension and a academy that United Airlines started there in Arizona. They know that, and we all know that there's a shortage of pilots, and there are a number of pilots that are starting to retire. But how do we make sure that the workforce is diverse? As you know, you bring more pilots into the fray. Only I think 1% of pilots in America right now, or globally, are black women. How do we make sure that there are more black women tied into that pipeline? How do you make sure there's a more diverse workforce that's able to fly? But it's all, if you think about a pilot, it's something science, technology, engineering, art, and math that's related to them flying a plane. It just happens to be in aviation, just like somebody just happens to be in IT, or somebody happens to be at a startup. It's all those same disciplines. How do you continue to go down the same path? I'm talking about the same thing. It just happens to be in a different industry.
Yeah. Now, I know you've got a busy day ahead of you here. You've got a press conference coming up. You've got a panel discussion or a fireside chat you're on called Invest Elites. People aren't going to hear this till after that happens, so give me a little sneak peek. What are you here talking about today?
What's crazy is I have no idea what we're going to talk about.
Oh, that's great.
Which is scary and also great at the same time.
It's a lot like this, because you didn't really know.
I have no idea what we're going to talk about. Me and the guy who's interviewing me, Kai Baum from Courtside Ventures, we had dinner last night. We were with some friends, so just a couple of us hanging out. And they were like, well, Kelvin, what's your topic about? I'm like, I have no idea. Wait till Kai gets here.
Yeah.
Kai gets here. I'm like, hey, Kai, what are we talking about tomorrow? He's like, you find out tomorrow. So I know it's going to be, we know each other. I'm one of those people, when I get on a stage like this, don't give me the softball questions. I think people are tired about the softball questions that are super easy. They can answer in their sleep.
Yeah.
What are those questions that I have to think about? I have to actually pause as I'm on stage and really think about critically, how do I want to answer this question? But also question, am I doing everything internally and within my life to make sure that I'm equipped to do some of the things that he does for a living? I'm a professional athlete. That's what I do for a living.
Yeah.
He's a professional investor. I'm learning how to be a professional investor. So it's again, that duality type of conversation of being an athlete, but also learning the best practices and being able to do their job as well.
All right, so let's not go softball then. What do you think of all the different things you're here looking at, the different technologies that exist? What is the area that you think you can have the most impact, given your knowledge, given your resources, given your place and the people that you know?
I think first and foremost is the ability to be rejected. How do you learn how to be rejected and how you come back from it? Playing in the National Football League, playing sports of any type, but playing it at the highest level, you've heard no just as many times as the founder has heard no. How do you become numb to it, and how do you take or the feedback that they've given you, how do you go out and make those corrections? I've been coached a ton. How do some of these startups and some of the companies that are here take the coaching that they may hear from this type of environment and take it back to their companies and go and build? So I think the one thing that I can really lend to this community is, how do you deal with rejection? How do you find a way to get back up from some of the hardships and some of the no's that you will get in this industry?
All right. So knowing that Collision is a 3-day conference, you've got the panels you're on. Have you been checking out any booths here? Is there any specific tech companies that you're really fascinated by?
Yeah, I haven't seen anybody that I'm blown away by. I've had a chance to walk by quite a few of them. Walked the area and kind of moved around yesterday. It's fascinating to see everything that's going on here. The technology, the companies, the energy. I think that's the biggest thing that I've gotten from being here is the energy that you feel walking into the convention center. But it's my first time at Collision, so I'm just trying to take it all in and soak it all in.
All right. So, final question then. Football, as we've said a couple times, you're definitely not done yet. But football isn't forever, at least being on the field, right? Many athletes, after they retire, I think struggle to figure out what are you going to do next, because so many of them have spent almost their entire lives working towards this goal, and they've done it for however long. You're 11 years in, you got a 2-more-year contract, and then who knows beyond that? You could still be around after that, but one day you're not going to be out on the field.
Sure.
And so what do you think is the most likely direction you're going to be heading in after football? Or do you think it's just going to be a combination of everything we've talked about?
I think philanthropically I'm going to continue to go down those 2 lanes, ending hunger both domestically and worldwide. And being able to focus on science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. That's not going anywhere. I'm going to continue doing those things. As it pertains to things, more aligned with business, I'm going to be an asset allocator of some type. in some shape, form, or fashion, whether it's venture, whether it's private equity, whether it's a combination of both. Won't really touch the public markets. I really spend a lot of time in the private markets. So it's really just going to depend on the scale and how I'm going to be doing it within that particular sector. But it's going to be in the private markets, being able to move capital and understanding the role of capital up and down the capital stack.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing your whole career path. I know that there's a lot of athletes who, in particular, I think will benefit from hearing about there's a phrase I heard from a career counselor one time. I work at a university, and they talked about dual paths, having always two roads you head down. So that way, if one ends, you've got that other path. It sounds very much like that's the path you're heading down. So I hope some of this will be imparted on other athletes, and they're going to benefit from hearing about your career.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much, Jonathan.
Thank you.